Welcome to That's What She Pled, with attorneys Christina Goldberg and Julie Luhrsen from Luhrsen Goldberg, LLC, law powered by women. It's time to shake up the old standards of law and of business. Join these two witty, intelligent, and sassy female business owners who are taking their industry by storm, challenging stereotypes and shattering ceilings. These two are on a mission to educate, empower, and support not only their own clients, but other powerhouse female entrepreneurs. Come for a laugh and stay for the vibe as Julie and Christina hold nothing back and share the truth of what it is to be female attorneys and business owners through discussion of current events, original stories, and inspiring guests. Now, on to the show.
Law powered by women. Yeah, it's a thing, and it's something that can work for you. Julie Luhrsen and Christina Goldberg know the ins and outs of today's law, and you might be surprised at the unusual twists and turns. How about a big insurance company ordered to pay $5 million to a woman who contracted herpes in a car? Oh, yeah, and we'll get to that. I'm Patrice Sikora, and before we talk STDs and insurance, Julie and Christy, tell me the story behind law powered by women.
So in our initial podcast, I use the word serendipity. It honestly applies, I think, more to how we landed as law powered by women. We started out as going into practice together, and we kept having clients and people tell us, hey, it's so awesome. You know, there's two women. That's so cool. And we would sort of, chuckle and think, yeah. I mean, we're one of many women lawyers. And it kept happening and it kept happening. And then finally we thought, you know what, maybe we're missing something here. Mm-hmm. And, we were trading these stories about, this has happened yet again. And so we took a step back and sort of, changed our position and, suddenly realized, you know what, this is something, let's brainstorm. And one thing led to another, and we became law powered by women. And that same sort of, amazement and, just support and positive feedback for the most part has just kept on. So what do you think, Christy? Did I do that justice?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And it really hit us. And we actually had a couple of advertising companies reach out to us and say, you guys are pretty cool. Why aren't you marketing this? And it was just such a funny thing to Julie and I, because we fell into place together, and it wasn't a thought in our minds. And so every time it happened, it was, gosh, thanks. That's okay. But yeah, we're great. We're happy. We're good. But it really took a good solid year of us continuing to hear the same things for us to finally go, okay. All right. So yeah, that's exactly how it happened. Not to be confused with law that only helps women, which I think is the sort of the downside to our trademark, right? Is that a lot of times we have the misconception that we only represent women, and that's absolutely not true. Probably at this point, if we were to take stock of our active cases, I would bet you we have more active cases with men than with women. But you know what? It's really worked out well for us.
How did you come up with the name, though? Why, usually it's Luhrsen and Goldberg or Goldberg and Luhrsen, and no, it's law powered by women.
Well, we're both. We're Luhrsen Goldberg. That was our, original. And, we had a tagline, which, worked, but it wasn't particularly noteworthy. So anyway, what we did, in answer to your question, Patrice, is we really sat down and literally brainstormed.
Hours.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to do the right thing. Right. You can't, you got to be really careful if this is going to be it. And you've got to be thinking with an eye on, this is the future. So if whatever our firm becomes, this is always what it is going to have as the tagline. This is what we're trying to create, and thinking in such broad terms made it really, really difficult. But we went through some yellow notepads and a lot of scribbling. Yeah.
Yeah. We wanted it to have longevity. We didn't want to have to be reimagining ourselves, in 2 more years or whatever. And
it's the right choice.
It is. And we find new ways that it has been really beneficial to us. It sticks with people. Even something as simple as doing a Google search for injury attorneys. And they have, these local ads, and suddenly there's a photo associated with it. And it's broadly speaking populated by white men, oftentimes with beards. And,
True.
we don't have beards and we're not men. So, we just stand out in that way too. And then one thing leads to another. And if people kind of get who we are, it makes sense to them and it works for them.
Just out of curiosity, what were some of the runner-up ideas? Remember them?
That was 6 years ago.
All right.
I don't know what I had for dinner last night.
Knowing me, I probably still have all of those scribbles
important.
saved somewhere, but I don't remember what the back. I don't remember. No. This one just, and it's so funny because it was one of those, like it didn't have to sit. It didn't have to marinate. We didn't have to think on it for very long. When it came out, it was like, oh, that it sounded right. It flowed right. It felt right immediately. So yeah, that was just it. And then forget the rest.
All right.
Yeah.
The analogous experience, Patrice, is when we decided that we wanted to get into the podcasting arena. And we sat down with our yellow pads and spent a couple hours brainstorming and trying to come up with ideas, themes, and what we wanted to call it. And we had a lot of good stuff. And I think that was the same experience we had 6 years ago or whatever. But, eventually once we got to That's What She Pled, it was like, bingo, the light was on.
Right.
So, here we are, law powered by women. That's what she pled.
Nice. What types of cases do you take and why?
And why? Ooh. So we handle personal injury, which is it's an umbrella. There are obviously every single case is different and there is a reason to take and to not take a case. And there are times that we can be very, very helpful to potential clients. And there are times that we actually decide that us not getting involved is more helpful to that potential client, which is one of the things that I think we're very proud of the way that we handle our practice in that regard. There are an awful lot of times that we could take a case on and take a fee from it or take a part of what that potential client could get very easily and have no qualms doing it, but that's just not who we are. Anyway, we, your standard run of the mill, we'll do auto accidents, liability incidents, we'll do slip and falls, dog bites. Those are tragic cases. And a lot of times there's very little we can actually do just because of the laws in Florida. Wrongful death claims, bike accidents, pedestrian accidents, trucking accidents. We've done premises liability cases that have nothing to do with a slip and fall, or, they get very involved, just having to do with some sort of negligence by an employee somewhere, or it runs the gamut really. And we just listen to the facts of each case and decide, is this really something that we can manage? I mean, we pretty much draw the line. Medical malpractice is such a niche field that if we feel like we really cannot specialize and focus our practice on that, we don't want to handle it at all. We're not doing anybody favors to sort of take a stab. So we'll refer those out, but anything else, we ready and willing.
I mean, I think Christy's covered the entire gamut. And back to the 6 years ago, how we came up with Law Powered by Women. One of the things we very intentionally thought about, because we've always wanted to be able to grow and not just practice in the injury law arena. That's what Christina and I do, but we wanted it to be able to allow us to branch into other practice areas. So as we continued to grow and that sort of thing, we added a second practice area of estate planning, elder law a couple of years ago. And so that works beautifully. I think moving forward, I can envision that family law will be another part of the umbrella of Law Powered by Women legal services that we provide. Yeah, in addition to the injury law, we help folks, who just started a family. Now they have kids to think about, or they're older, or they just moved to the state of Florida, or they've had some other sort of life-altering, changing event. They've gotten divorced, they've gotten remarried. And so, estate planning is an important piece of
yeah. Or they've just moved to Florida like the rest of the entire nation.
Some people have.
Yeah, that's true. You haven't yet.
No, I have not. Although my son is there.
Oh,
is he? Okay.
Yes, he is.
Okay, so you visit.
Yes, I do. Yeah. It's hot down there.
It is
Yes,
hot.
it is.
This week, I think I saw a 95 every day, no rain.
And the humidity, let's talk humidity here. What do you do with your hair? What do you do with your hair?
You see, I purposely curl mine and hairspray it so that it looks like when the humidity takes over, I meant to do it that way. No, that's fun.
All right.
Yeah, no comment. With respect to myself, not Christy. Her hair looks beautiful.
Thank you.
What should a potential client expect when they contact you?
Well, they're going to get me, or they're going to get Christina. They're not going to get, a staff person. They're going to have an opportunity to sit down face to face or via Zoom or over the phone, whatever they want at our offices, or we will go out and, meet with them where it's convenient, but they're getting us, and that's from start to finish throughout the life of their case with us. If they want to talk to us, all they have to do is call.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, which isn't necessarily how other injury firms practice. I mean, there's different ways to do this, but we make it a point. It is a priority for us that when you hire an attorney, you're getting the attorney.
Right.
Christy?
Yeah. Same. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I actually had a client come in last week who said had a former attorney and just was not happy with that attorney and said, I want somebody who's actually going to be there and pay attention to my file. And when I communicate that I'm actually getting that person's attention, said that with this former attorney, she and her husband had walked into the office with a new auto accident, wanting to handle it that way, and they were turned away by the person at the desk saying, no, we only do that by phone. Okay. So not our style, not our practice. I understand things have changed since with COVID, and offices have largely, shut down or gone remote, whatever it is. But I couldn't understand why, with such a difficult schedule, she was insisting on meeting in person. And now I understand why. Is because she was literally turned away by the last one. But that just, Julie and I have decided, if we get to the point where we are too busy for our clients, we're doing something wrong. Our clients are what keep us going. So always, you have a direct line to our emails. You have the ability to text us at any time. You have the ability to call our office. And if we're not immediately available, be put on our calendars. So we definitely handle things a lot differently here. That does not mean that we don't have support staff. Of course we do. But we are the ones earning the fee that we are charging. So, that means a lot to us. And I think that, we thrive on positive reviews, and we thrive on personal referrals, and continue to get referrals from former clients and other colleagues and different professionals in the area, because they know when they refer somebody over here, they know what that person is going to get. And that's a huge reflection on the person doing the referring. But yeah, I like to think we're special in that regard.
The personal touch.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It means a lot to us.
Yeah.
Client-centered.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, in the previous podcast, you also mentioned the fact that you wanted to, in these podcasts, mention something, current events, perhaps in the news. And I just teased a story that you told me about, and I went and looked up and went, you've got to be kidding me. But we're talking about an insurance company being told to pay for an STD. Who wants to take this?
I'm sure we both have something to add about it. Julie, you
Not
actually
from personal experience.
No.
And this isn't even a Florida case.
Exactly. No. What is it? Missouri? Yeah, it's Missouri.
Missouri, Kansas.
Close enough, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow.
There you go. I mean, it's funny because we both started kind of researching it, pulling up the orders and reading, for us, the geeky part of it is the judges, the reasoning and talking about the statute and why this statute doesn't apply in this, XYZ. But really the juicy part, the part that you hear on all the media outlets is the uproar. Oh my gosh, can you believe? Yeah, I can believe it.
Oh, did I say that? It was a $5.2 million decision in favor of this gal who had unprotected sex in a car with somebody she'd been dating for a short while. And ultimately, the courts said that she was entitled to $5.2 million.
What was the reasoning?
Well, you have to be careful because, again, this is Missouri and not Florida. And so Julie and I can talk very specifically about what we think would happen in Florida. For Missouri, basically, and the first thing I thought was, well, wait a minute. If I can understand being upset at someone if they intentionally sort of, if you have unprotected intercourse and they're aware that they have this condition, and so sort of more of an intentional act. But if it's an intentional act, it's typically going to be not covered by any sort of liability policy, right? An insurance company excludes intentional acts. So my initial feeling was, well, gosh, if it wasn't intentional, how can you negligently? Maybe he really didn't know. Anyway, the facts say that he sort of kind of knew that he had a condition, but he didn't realize that the condition that he had could be transferred in this manner. So negligence, that's what was established. And what the Missouri court, now there are a couple of suits pending. So there's one in the state court, there's one in the federal court, but the most recent appellate decision out of the Western District of Missouri was basically that, listen, the injured party, made a claim, sent Geico communication saying, hey, this happened. I want you to pay me. I think she demanded $1 million.
Which was the policy.
Right, which is the policy limit. Geico basically held up its middle finger and said, no, we're not covering that. So she went ahead and she did her thing. She arbitrated her suit with the, what should we call him, the donor? And
the guy with the thing in his throat.
Right,
apparently.
Exactly. So she arbitrated and got an arbitration award of $5.2 million, and then went ahead and filed the formal judgment action. And it is at that point that Geico said, whoa, we didn't have an opportunity to defend ourselves. And the court now on appeal twice now has said, sorry, you had an opportunity and you chose not to take advantage of it. So she did this right. So that's procedurally more, it's a little geeky, but it's so interesting. That's what's happening. And then there's a federal court case that Geico filed separate and distinct from this one, that basically is asking a federal court to determine, wait a minute, facts aside, do we actually owe coverage under this particular circumstance and according to the policy language? Now, the policy language is not something we have in front of us, so we can't say, but that's kind of the idea of it. But I mean, everything's looking like, doesn't it make you wonder though, who might benefit from the 5.2 million? Are they still together? If they were still together, would there be testimony to that effect?
I find it hard to believe they'd still be together after this.
Well, they were dating for about a month, apparently. And this was back in 2017. Obviously, it's now 2022, which perhaps, is somewhat of a testament to that justice can take time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the declaratory judgment action, that's what they call those. When you go to the court and you ask them, hey, look at this contract, this policy of insurance, and tell us under this contract whether or not the particular allegation of negligence would apply. So that's still pending. But
now under Florida law, for instance, because we have different types of coverage, Florida law does not require any sort of liability insurance for injuries. So that wouldn't be in this particular instance, unless the policy carried it, that wouldn't be an issue. But what would be an issue is under our HIP, sort of our medical coverage. The statute says if it's arising out of the ownership, maintenance, or use of a motor vehicle, it's payable. Well, they were using the motor vehicle. Yeah. So in Florida, the assessment would be largely the same. I would still be curious to see the policy language about that. But the Florida legislature certainly has not seen it fit to narrow, the word use. They haven't put permissible use or
normal use.
Well,
I maybe think that's normal.
I was going to say, I raise my hand here and say permissible and normal. I think it depends what age you might be.
Right.
Well, interestingly, and this kind of goes off into the weeds, there's been a preliminary issue in the federal court case on a different, well, what it had to do was the parties don't have their, like, for instance, it's not Julie Luhrsen, it's JL versus whoever the guy is and his initials. And so the preliminary issue is whether or not they can continue to proceed just in a quasi-anonymous status or not. But in deciding that issue, the court observed essentially that sex in a car and the transmission of STDs is actually pretty commonplace. So,
Oh my God.
I don't know that bodes well for Geico unless their insurance, their contract of insurance that specifically
Yeah.
excludes sexual
Exactly.
activity in a car. I don't know. So for Christy and me, these are sort of geeky, weird, weedy issues, but it's kind of the thing that makes our blood,
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Love
So maybe the ultimate moral of the story is this pretty complicated, weedy stuff. There's no reason why, Joe Bag of Donuts on the street would really have any reason to know whether or not he's got protection.
I see what you
But
did there.
under his policy of insurance for something like that or not. So give your friendly injury attorneys a call. Actually, we don't do the defense, but if you happen to have been injured because
anyway, because
you're
fun.
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So have we? Yeah, I think we
rest
have.
here. We rest here. I just think responsibility. It comes back to that, doesn't it?
It really does.
On somebody's part.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Well, to be fair, I think at arbitration she asked for an award of 9 point something, and they only gave her 5 point something million because she participated.
Mm-hmm.
well, and listen, she might have had some protection, just not the appropriate kind of protection.
True. That's very true.
So, there's that. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, on that note, how can listeners reach you?
Well, we're everywhere. So we are at lawpoweredbywomen.com. We are on every social media channel. You know what? We don't have a TikTok, so maybe yeah.
That's believe me, that's in your favor.
Is it in our favor? I don't know. There's some pretty great attorneys out of Miami who are the shut the fuck up attorneys. They're great on TikTok, I have to say.
Wow.
They're
Okay.
the criminal
They do
defense
criminal
attorneys.
defense. So
Yeah.
it's a
If
play
this
on words
happens, yeah, that's great.
there.
Anyway,
STFU.
but we're on all social media platforms other than TikTok. Yeah, and we're just here in bright, sunny, hot, humid Florida.
And we're the ones that don't have facial hair in those local service ads that populate if you
Good to
And you're-
clarify.
And you are the host of this podcast. That's what she
exactly.
said. So follow this
Exactly.
podcast to make sure you know when a new episode is ready for you. And please rate, review, and share with others.
Thank you for listening to That's What She Pled podcast. Don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and do not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Luhrsen Goldberg lawyers. The content has been made available for general informational and educational purposes only and may not constitute the most up-to-date legal or other information. The content is not intended to be a substitute for legal advice from your individual attorney, and the information provided does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice.